Madam Speaker, House Resolution 1362 provides for consideration of the Senate amendment to H.R. 5501, the Tom Lantos and Henry Hyde United States Global Leadership Against HIV/AIDS, Tuberculosis, and Malaria Reauthorization Act of 2008. The rule provides 1 hour of general debate on the motion controlled by the Committee on Foreign Affairs. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, the Global Leadership Against HIV/AIDS, Tuberculosis, and Malaria Reauthorization Act is a comprehensive and fiscally responsible way to continue and advance America's leadership in the global fight against HIV, AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. I might add the two persons for whom this act is named were persons that exemplified and manifested throughout their careers the need for the Foreign Affairs Committee to proceed in a comprehensive and responsible manner. The bill authorizes $48 billion to combat HIV/AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria for fiscal year 09 through fiscal year 2013, and includes guidelines and goals for reducing the burden of these diseases. The bill supports culturally competent prevention and treatment measures that are based on empirical evidence rather than ideology. Additionally, it includes provisions that support a multifaceted approach to treating and preventing the three diseases, and encourages foreign and domestic healthcare entities to collaborate. The bill prevents foreign governments from unjustly profiting from U.S. aid and prohibits them from taxing the funds that the bill authorizes. Lastly, the bill seeks to improve oversight, transparency, and accountability in assessing the progress of the United States global HIV/AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria programs. Madam Speaker, the United States is and has become an important player in combating these global epidemics. However, although the underlying bill has bipartisan support, some have argued that it is imprudent to invest in global health programs while we are experiencing so many problems domestically. Nothing, in my opinion, could be further from the truth. Investing in global health ultimately leads to communities and countries that are more economically, socially, and politically stable. In this globally connected era, it is imperative that we address health and development in foreign countries. Malaria was virtually eradicated in most of the West more than 50 years ago. In fact, the Washington, D.C. area was particularly vulnerable to this disease. Effectively resolving this health threat undoubtedly contributed to the ability of our country and other Western countries to thrive and prosper. Therefore, it comes as no surprise that the 40% of men, women, and children who are at risk for contracting malaria live in poorer countries with less access to education, preventative health care, and treatment. As we consider this important bill, we'd be remiss if we did not look at it as an opportunity to think about how we can improve our response to HIV/AIDS and other debilitating diseases that affect people in this country. The fight against HIV/AIDS is also a fight against the health, economic, and educational disparities that continue to exist in communities that have been historically underprivileged. Nearly 3 decades after the first national reports on HIV/AIDS, the disease has reached every corner of the world and has claimed an estimated 25 million lives. Although the scope of HIV/AIDS has changed, the link between socioeconomic disparity and those who contract and die from the disease remains consistent around the world. In our hemisphere alone, whether you're talking about Honduras or Haiti or my home state of Florida, people of African, indigenous, and Hispanic ancestry are disproportionately contracting and dying from HIV/AIDS. Madam Speaker, this issue hits close to home for me, as Florida has consistently ranked third in the nation in the number of reported cases of HIV/AIDS. In 2006, blacks accounted for 45% of all AIDS cases in men and 69% in women, which is more than any other racial or ethnic group in the state of Florida. Sadly, in that same year, the HIV case rate among black women was 17 times higher than among white women. In the absence of a cure, education and increased access to medication are the most powerful and cost-effective ways to treat and prevent the spread of HIV/AIDS around the world. Yet the existence of antiretroviral drugs and other treatment has not translated into accessibility. Less than 25% of patients in developing countries and 30% of patients domestically receive antiretroviral treatment. Even more, the consequences of allowing people to remain ignorant of HIV/AIDS has proven to be just as deadly as the virus itself. Consider this. Political leaders of countries particularly stricken by HIV/AIDS have told their citizens that HIV/AIDS can be controlled by consuming garlic, lemon juice, and beetroot. Such a statement sounds unquestionably absurd to most. However, around the world, people continue to be misinformed about preventing and treating this disease. They allow fear to halt open and honest discussions about this disease. Personally, I have hosted, in the last year and a half, 3 town hall meetings in the congressional district that I'm privileged to represent. At each of them, activists, specialists, religious leaders, and the general public have openly discussed and asked questions about how to address HIV/AIDS in their community. These fora have been educational and meaningful tools in fighting this disease, and more are needed. I might add at those fora, Madam Speaker, some courageous young women that are HIV/AIDS infected appeared and gave their testimonies, compelling in respect to their own issues and informative as to those that were in the audience, to hear people who are living with this disease actually put forward ideas about the need for greater education and information and treatment. As a leader in global health and human rights, Madam Speaker, this country, all of us, must not allow ignorance, stigmatization, and unequal access to medication to continue in this country or abroad. By supporting this rule and the underlying bill, we're investing in global health, the global economy, and our global community as a whole. Madam Speaker, I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Florida, Mr. Hastings, reserves his time. The gentleman from Florida, Mr. Diaz-Balart, is recognized.